negotiations versus striking Iran. That's what's happening in today's world of geopolitics. It's all about whether or not President Trump will decide to strike Iran or if he will agree to some kind of deal through negotiations with the government of Iran, which is now on schedule to have more negotiations Thursday. Remember a couple days ago, it was all about more negotiations until end of February. Well, we're still in February. 5 more days of it. So today's Monday, meaning by sometime probably Friday, maybe Saturday, the time on the deal will end. And in the lead up to the Purim holiday, which, if you don't know, is the story of the Jewish people in Persia, of all places, the clock will have run out on the negotiations if they haven't struck a deal. Apparently, however, let me remind you, the clock has been reset like 10 times already in the last month. Okay? So we're not exactly sitting on a definite time clock here. Because there's one thing the Iranians are good at, it's slowing down the clock. That is the Iranian government. And that's exactly what they've done until now. And that's exactly what they continue to do. They're giving you a million reasons why it could be going either way. And those reasons remain in place. They have not changed since the last time we spoke. The last time and if it does take weeks or longer to make this decision to effectively do the thing or move along, it is unlikely that there will be U.S. intervention. And then the forces in Tehran would effectively remain in place. And if that were to happen without a deal, that would look very bad for Trump and other Western powers that are actively trying to see some regime change happen. So, could Israel strike if the U.S. strikes a deal with Iran? Still could happen, yeah. Israel could still strike targets in Iran if it believes that they pose a threat and they need to be eliminated. That kind of thing could still happen. But even if that does happen, you can bet that Israel will be doing whatever it has to do to notify the U.S. ahead of time if it has to, or on time, or after the fact, whatever the case may be. Because if the U.S. has a deal with Iran and the U.S. promises not to strike Iran, then it would be harder for Israel to notify the U.S. before a strike. They could give them kind of vagaries, like, well, we might still strike certain targets, but they might not give them timelines or anything like that. Or they could even just tell the U.S., well, now we can't tell you anymore which updated targets we're looking at. But only those inside the circuit will know that, and obviously would not speak to it publicly, even if they did know, and would deny knowing it, right? Because not the kind of thing you just say out loud if you know. And if you know, you know. So, on the one hand, there still is the possibility that Iran will, in fact, reach a negotiated deal with America. And that would, from at least America's point of view, satisfy the Americans not to attack Iran directly in the immediate future, and they could begin pulling back all their assets, which could be redeployed very quickly, right? So they would be out of the way almost immediately, and Iran would have basically no immediate threat facing it in the same way that it does today. Hello there. I see you messaging in the chat. Nice to see you. By all means, please like and sub if you want. That would be very helpful. Appreciate it. So that is the likely outcome of the situation right now, right? Because we're likely to see Trump basically, well, look, he's going to do one thing or the other. We know he's going to either come to negotiate a deal or he's going to probably strike. Because the probability of him not coming to negotiate a deal and not doing anything, thus making him look even more pathetic than what he constantly says Obama was. Because you can say JCPOA, whatever, the joint coalition of Europeans and Russians and Americans to inspect the nuclear facilities in Iran. You can say that that Six Nation thing was a bad deal for America, for Israel, for the West in general. You can say that. However, it still had inspections. It still had something, some kind of delay mechanisms compared to nothing. No deal, right? No inspection of anything. And just letting the Ayatollah remain in power with no delay mechanisms on their nuclear progress. The only thing that there is the constant, unending potential threat that the Americans might do something kinetically, which of course is always there, but it's much more to a heightened degree at the moment. And if the gas is taken off the pedal now, it'll probably be at a much lesser risk level of actually threatening Iran. And that would basically mean that the Ayatollahs had won this round, which my skepticism has been indicating the whole time. If that happens, and I've constantly said it's a very big non-zero probability that will happen. It's not a done deal that there will be a negotiated settlement because of all the objections that Iran has about doing a deal with the U.S. about its nuclear missiles and ballistic missiles, nuclear capabilities and ballistic missiles, etc. So, if I was a betting man, yeah, sure, I'd say still my skepticism is still leading the way because still nothing has happened and it's still negotiations. But that said, I wouldn't mind putting a small wager just to hedge my bets on the non-zero probability that the U.S. will actually do something like a strike. Because again, you don't gather this many assets with such a strategic plan or such an obvious plan visible to the public, even if the details are kept secret, without doing something about it. It's a lot of asset movement. You could have done all of this with a lot less asset movement. Right? The risk to Iran is still very great. Even a week or two ago, 3 weeks ago, when they had far less assets in the area, it was still a very great risk to Iran. Now it's far greater. So we'll see. Hopefully something good will happen soon. See you guys in the next one. Peace. Shalom.